welcome all CPS members and non-CPS members if you found this video. My name's Nick. I thank you for joining me today, and I'm so excited to be here just to do a little floral design demo for you. Lori from the CPS reached out to me and asked me to do a demonstration, and I really thank her for that opportunity. I'm so pleased to be here, and I could not pass that opportunity up. So what the CPS is doing this year, just with the annual show being canceled and postponed, as are many things in life now, is they're taking elements of the show and kind of moving them online to the best of their abilities, just so we can kind of all enjoy peonies from the safety of our home while still kind of maintaining that human connection, which I think is super important. So I really applaud them for going through that effort. Just before we begin on the design part of things, I'm just going to go over a couple things. The first being a little background about myself. My name's Nick Macher. You may have seen me online in a few spaces just under my name or the name of my display garden, which is Prairie Peonies, not to be confused with the Prairie Peony Society. I've been growing peonies seriously since about 2013, I would say. And that kind of coincided with a whole lot of change in my life. I left university, I moved to Japan for a little bit, and then I came back and I started working at the flower shop I'm at now. And the shop I'm at now is called Panda Flowers. We're located in Edmonton. I also live in Edmonton, in West Edmonton, to be more specific. And that kind of means that my display garden is on a city plot in the suburbs. And that's posed a lot of challenges in terms of space, in terms of fitting the peonies in there. As it stands now, I'm kind of feeling the effects of those constraints. I have about 90 peony varieties, which is where I'm going to cap out at. And they range, from your lactifloras, of course, to your hybrids, to your intersectionals. And within those, it kind of ranges from, your historic classical heirloom peonies, like the Sarah Bernhardts that everyone has in their garden, to the new kind of boundary pushing, exciting introductions from the likes of Tim Stanek, Nate Bremer, Bill Seidel. His peonies are really in fashion right now, and rightly so. Don Hollingsworth, I know I said Nate Bremer, but actually I don't have a Bremer peony yet. His peonies are really hard to get a hold of. His website sells out so fast. Nate, if you see this, I am dying for one of your peonies. So just with all those, I really feel like there's something for everyone. If you're in the Edmonton area, I encourage you to visit, or if you're not, I encourage you to reach out and connect with me. I'd be happy to chat with you about peonies or floral design, anything of that nature. Okay, now moving on. Another thing you need to know before I start designing here is today's recording date is May 24th. I was asked to have this video submitted by June 20th. And that kind of posed a unique problem for me in that most of my peonies don't start blooming till around that mark. That's kind of my peak time. I have some hybrids that bloom a little bit earlier, but the mass of my flowers are around that June 20th mark. And we're running late this year. Spring has been a little bit late, so I didn't really want to leave it up to fate. We actually had a lot of beautiful BC peonies come in. You can see Coral Charm here and Lemon Chiffon. How cool is that? I mean, you can't beat that. So I thought now would be a good time to start recording the video. And so it's going to be a little bit off the cuff. I've done a couple rehearsals, but a lot of it I'm kind of just hitting major talking points and moving along. So I ask for your patience and just your understanding in that. So I guess now we'll kind of move on to the floral design side of things, excuse me. Like I said, I have Coral Charm in. These are beautiful field-grown cuts. You can see the stems are just massive, and they cut them right down to the crown, it looks like. So this peony was bred by Mr. Samuel Wissing and introduced into the registry in 1965. A fun fact about it is that it took Samuel Wissing 26 years to come up with the coral hybrids that he's known for. That's an amazing amount of time. I also have Lemon Chiffon here, bred by Mr. Reith, registered in 1981. And just with the way things kind of worked out this week, we're working with a lot of color, as you can see. Normally I'm kind of more monotone, or two colors, maybe an accent color. But it's a time of time right now in the world where I think we can use a lot of color. So that's kind of what I'm working with. And before we start, I was kind of thinking about how I should approach today's design. There's a couple methods you can use to design in a vase or container. You can use foam, and all these methods, they have their benefits and their drawbacks. You can use foam. You can use, this is kind of a fancy version of chicken wire, where people will kind of form it into a little ball and then interlace the stems as a grid to give you some mechanical support. You can do like a European hand-tied, which I really considered, but I think kind of those are elaborated a little bit better in other spaces and covered probably far more in depth than I could do today. I really did consider it though. And another method is lacing. So lacing is basically where you have your green stems kind of come in at an angle and they interlock to form a mechanical support for the rest of your flowers to go through. And they also give you kind of your general shape of your design and kind of show you the boundaries where you need to fill in space. So that's what we're going to be doing today. I thought that would be a good fit. A lot of people, they're not able to go out of their homes. A lot of shops are closed nowadays. Just things aren't easily accessible, like they used to be in the past. So I thought that would be today's approach. So I'm just going to come around now. I'll start making the structural framework with the greens, and I'm going to have my back towards the camera probably for the most of the video, unfortunately. So I'm going to move around and do that now. Okay, so first things first. In my experience with most flowers, you want to use warm water. And if you have floral food, you want to follow the directions to make sure that's mixed appropriately inside your container. I find the warm water helps hydrate flowers better. For peonies, it draws the water up to the flower head quicker, keeps those petals nice and hydrated. If you have any issues, with peonies or hydrangeas, I get a lot of questions about that. I always suggest, you recut them as short as the container allows, and you use hot water when you change that water. Okay, so right now I kind of have a mix of, this is leather leaf, it's a fern, I have boxwood here, and then Floral is a staple in a flower shop, so that's kind of what we have here. And I'm just, in a lot of the contemporary designs, you'll kind of see the basic shape is kind of sprawls out this way, and then you have a few focal flowers here. Everything's in groups. That's where you kind of see the most visual impact. So everything's kind of grouped in, and then you have some stems extending out here to create some visual interest, and then clusters of your smaller flowers. That's where the roses, the poppies, the ranunculus are going to come in. So I'm going to go ahead and start doing that now. Normally I don't talk while I design, so I'm not used to doing both, so you have to kind of bear with me as I get that going. So again, like this is where your large stems that are really woody and thick are going to help form a base where you can interlock your other flowers, and that's going to give you the mechanical support you need so your flowers aren't really shifting a whole lot. So, I always try to use a knife where possible. I think that kind of gives you the best cut on the stems. But a lot of people use garden shears. I'm not really a fan of the spring-loaded. Like I have these Japanese metal ones here, and these have lasted me years. They're great. So again, you're just kind of lacing in here and crisscrossing your stems to form mechanical support. The thing that's great about floral design is, it's not an iterative process. Every time is different. The stem shapes are different, the flower shapes are different. There's no real rules, so you just have to get into a place where you're happy, and that's the fun of it. So right now we're kind of starting to take on that shape, and then we're going to go in there with the flowers to fill in that space afterwards. Just with the nature of this video, it's kind of hard to get back around this desk. So my design is going to be mostly one-sided, so it's all going to be facing you, the viewer, right now. But you can take these principles and extend them to make this all around if you like. I always think it's interesting, you know, if you have the flowers and the greens, to have, you know, something kind of cascade down, you know. Okay, so that's, you know, as you see, that's probably a pretty good base. You don't want to go too heavy on the greens, or else you're going to have trouble getting the stems in. And as you know, like open peonies, I've had these outside to open up. Open peonies, I have some hydrangeas there. They fill a lot of space, so this is going to fill up pretty quick. You know, I probably have more than I need there. So we're going to start putting the flowers in. I'm just going to quickly leaf shine this. This is a force of habit as a florist. You get those leaves nice and shiny. It's not necessary, but just one of those extra touches. So right now, we're going to put the hydrangeas in. These benefit with a nice cut with a sharp knife at an angle. And you know, you'll know right away if you don't have the support for your vase, because hydrangeas have a really woody stem that's thicker. If you don't have that support, they're just going to move around on you. So we're going to find out right now. Yeah, and that sits in there nicely. It's not really going anywhere. So I'm going to set these kind of down in there. There's a few elements of design that I think are really important. You know, first, of course, is your structural stability. That's self-explanatory. You don't want anything that's shifting or going to fall apart if you move it. Another thing is depth. So you'll notice I'm going to set some things lower down. I'm going to have some things kind of come out a little bit. And what that does, it just provides some visual interest. Makes you want to kind of really look in and amongst the flower design there. So every design kind of needs, there's different flowers that serve different purposes. So every design needs focal flowers, which are, you know, your peonies and hydrangeas. They need an element of texture, I think, is important to kind of balance with your focal flowers. So that's kind of where your smaller flowers like viburnum and the status here will come in. So we're going to be mixing those two types of flowers today. And again, like we're just trying to group right now, really makes your flowers, you know, make more of a statement, more expensive when things are grouped. Those are kind of, you know, our major players, I would say, for focal flowers. Maybe in here we'll do a cluster of these awesome garden roses. We'll put it in ranunculus in on this side. And again, these are all kind of grouped. This one kind of sits a little deeper in there to give you that dimension. And then now we're going to add the flowers that I call mass flowers. They're not filler, they just have a bunch of smaller sized blooms, and they can really give you that texture, which I think is important to balance amongst the larger size flowers. So this right here is viburnum. Let's go in now. cascade and reach out. So it's kind of important to step back and take a look at where you're at. Like right now I can see fill this space here. So kind of going with the tools down. To get that kind of lower insertion, you almost want to, the way it works mechanically is you almost want to go straight kind of back into it. So you have to be careful that your flower is actually in the water there. And right here I'm seeing like a lot of that kind of peachy coral, so I just want to introduce some green to break that up. Typically, I'm not designing with, solely peonies and hydrangeas. So this is a little bit of a different design. A lot of times we'll just mix in one hydrangea here or there, or one peony sort of here or there, right? So this is a little bit of a different approach today. I'm going to pull this guy forward a little bit, not have him presenting. And then I thought I had some Spirea. I'm just going to reach around and go check for that. Kind of looking at this and want to kind of give it a little reach out to the sides here. So I'm just going to come in with the Spirea, and that's going to draw the eye upwards there. Not sure if you can quite see. There's a few kind of dead spaces in here. So I'm just going to go down in there. I'm going to set some flowers. Now this is the whole depth thing I'm talking about that encourage you to kind of move around the arrangement, take a look inside, really look at it. Just makes the arrangement feel a little more dynamic. So I have a poppy here. So maybe what I'm thinking is I move that poppy down just right in that little slot right here. I'm not sure if you're getting that on the camera, but hopefully you can see that. And that will, although, it may not be immediately obvious, it's going to encourage you to just kind of go down, look inside there, see what's going on. Okay, I'm just going to reshuffle this viburnum this way. And then we're probably getting close, to where I'm happy to say, we're near the end. Sweet pea. It's always nice for the flowers to appeal to, all senses, including smells. And then maybe we'll have this anemone kind of reach out this way to stretch the design. Yeah, it's really interesting kind of, dictating as you arrange. It's not something I normally do. I have to kind of stop and unpack things that I do every day and explain them, which I'm not really used to. So I appreciate your patience with me. So I still want it to go, I'm still kind of not pleased. I think it can kind of go a little further out, so I'm going to use this leather leaf to just extend it out. That looks a little bit better. And another thing I think you can do, which is really interesting,